Hello there. Today I'm lucky enough to be in Pauillac and I'm at Chateau Batailley. Chateau Batailley, a fifth growth under the 1855 classification, and a wine that, to my mind, offers some really great value from within Pauillac. Not a region where you tend to think of the wines as necessarily being particularly cheap. 2024, a challenging vintage for the winemakers. Pierre Casteja, who owns Chateau Batailley, was saying that in the vineyard they're sorting, they rejected at least 20% of the crop that was harvested here, both sort of in the vineyard, and once the fruit had reached the chateau, it was put through an optical sorter after it had been destemmed. The other approach that was important in 2024 was to keep fermentation temperatures down quite low. They didn't want to extract too much tannin from the wines. I think trying to make a sort of a relatively mellow style. The fruit was ripe when it was picked, and certainly you detect ripeness in the wines, but they're not overripe. The alcohol on this is 13.5%, for instance, which is completely balanced for a Cabernet Sauvignon dominated wine. There's not quite the high ripeness levels of some of the other vintages of the 20s so far. The blend for this is 81% of Cabernet Sauvignon, with 15% of Merlot, and the balance being made up with 4% of Petit Verdot. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? First of all, the colour. The colour is deep, it's dark, I would say it's virtually opaque. I might just be able to see the slightest hint of the stem of the glass as I look down through it. I'm swirling it, and the wine is instantly throwing tears onto the side of the glass. There's a good viscosity here, I think a reasonable structure, and probably some glycerol in there as well from ripe grapes. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? The aromas are a little reticent, but there's some high ripeness black fruit. There's to my mind, black cherries, some black plums, some perhaps dams in there, but both of those on the quite juicy end of the spectrum of ripeness for that sort of fruit. There are just hints of sort of slightly bitter coffee, notes of sweet spice, perhaps a touch of nutmeg or cinnamon or something like that. The wine is currently aging in French oak barrels. These will be 225 litre barriques, and 57% of those were new. So let's have a taste. On the palate, a fairly savoury structure takes over. There's a touch of meatiness. There are notes of graphite. There's a black fruit and a richness, a bitter licorice note as well, touches of anise. But also there's good acidity, and you can see a juicy cassis fruit behind all this. There's plentiful gripping tannin, but it's quite smooth. There's a sort of a velvety nature to it almost. But at the same time as you've got sort of cedar and graphite notes actually making the mid-palate a little impenetrable, the acidities ensuring that you've got juicy black cherry and cassis notes around the edge of my tongue where I'm salivating. The wine's a little restrained, but it's a very correct, beautifully structured wine. As I say, those tannins have grip, but they aren't particularly astringent. The slightly closed up graphite and cedar note in the mid palate makes me think the wine probably needs 3 or 4 years to open up. But then there's a sort of a smooth, mellow nature to the finish. It makes me think this is wine that probably won't need long aging. I think it's a wine that's aiming to provide some really nice mid-term drinking. I think it's a very correct example of Chateau Batailley, and therefore I think it's one to watch to see what sort of price it's released at. And if it's released at an advantageous price, I think it actually makes a lot of sense for people who love these quite classic styles of Pauillac to think about investing in this. Certainly from my tasting of this wine and some of the other wines from the Casteja family's estates, I certainly wouldn't want to write off the 2024 vintage at this stage, because these wines have some real intrinsic quality. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the video of interest. If you do like it, please do press the button to say you do. If you would like to subscribe and follow our YouTube channel, that would be fantastic. We'd really appreciate your support, and that way you can set yourself a notification and you can be alerted every time we release a new video. If you have any comments, please pop those in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think of the wines, the tastings, or anything else related to this. If you have friends you think might like to know more about Château Batailley 2024, do please feel free to share the video with them. We'd really appreciate your endorsement in that way. I'll leave a link to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, and once prices have been released, you'll be able to follow that and you'll be able to find out where the wine's available and at what price. We'll also put more of the background detail about the wine on those pages as well, so do please use that resource. I'm in Bordeaux now for another couple of weeks, so there will be more of these videos, and hopefully you'll follow me on my adventures. So until then, thank you for joining us, and bye for now.